And this is really I'm here, it's a ask me anything about your work, ask me anything about your frustration, your doubts, how to do your work now, why. I was reading this week about hypernormalization is a phrase I had not heard before. I don't know if you've ever heard that phrase, but it is so helpful. Hypernormalization, you might say. It's such an interesting, helpful idea for living in this madness. So what it is, I'm sure you're very conscious, you're very aware of what's going on to some extent. How much can any of us know, right? So here you are, you're conscious, you're aware, but yet you've got to do your work, you've got to figure out the finances, you've got to make something to eat. You've gotta do all this stuff, and you also, have a garden, and you also have friends, and you also are falling in love or breaking up. You're doing all these things. You're also deciding to get married or not get married, and yet all of everything that's happening is still happening, and the way of dealing with that, the way that we're making sense of it is, one of the words for it is hypernormalization, and I just think that is such a super helpful idea. Hey George, oh my gosh, great to see you. Um, such a so hypernormalization. I wrote about it a little more in depth this week, but that's all. It's not that different than cognitive dissonance. Although with cognitive dissonance, it's two competing beliefs or two competing desires within you, whereas hypernormalization is this awareness that you living in a certain way, you're leading your life, and yet there's this other reality. It's almost like you hy so to say you hypernormalize what's normal, which is a word that's so disturbing anyway, this is what is, and now less than ever. But, you're super aware in almost a crunchy way, I would say. You're super aware of what is normal around you and making your life work, and yet at the exact same time, there is this I'm gonna say that it's hypernormalization because there's this kind of light, it's almost like a high contrast filter that, world events, national events are are shining onto what your normal life is. Your Let's call it more an everyday life. I wish it was called like hyper everydayness, because normalization is so I don't know. The word normal is just so irritating in like every way. But nevertheless, that's the phrase that I found. And this was an article in The Guardian, which I did link to in my Substack this week, which was called making it make the thing that's gonna make the thing that's gonna make you. Right, that's what I called it, because, um, basically the idea is that let's just leap to the end in that idea in case you've gotta leave. The idea is that you're a creative person. I'm gonna assume you're a creative person in some way. Number 1, you're on Substack. Number 2, you are, checking in with something called the Infinite Creator. Beth Lapides is Infinite Creator. So you have some concerns about your creative life in this environment. You have these same concerns probably all the time, and now they are hyper normalized. So one of the things that I'm really thinking about is it's so there is a feeling of what more can I do? How can I help? What's my part in it? And, there are some, pretty standard answers. They're showing up in, demonstrating kind of ways. There's giving of your time, there's giving of your money, there's giving of your heart. There's, ways you can help that are super direct, and everybody's got to figure out, which part of all those things is possible for them. And then there is your work, and it is my true belief that your work is part of the solution. Who did I see saying this? I wanna make sure to uh, Ben Folds 5, yeah, was saying, we've always been told, creativity, it's not that important, it's not that great, why should we fund it, blah, blah, blah. Well, very early on, the Kennedy Center was taken over, right? It's just like, oh, they went right to that. And yeah, it's important. Your work is important. I don't know if you're writing, I don't know if you're music, I don't know if you're directing or producing, I don't know if you're a poet, I don't know if you're a painter or a videographer, I don't know if you're a journalist, I don't know what kind of work you're doing. Maybe you're making sand painting, sand drawings and mandalas, or maybe you're a graphic designer or a hair artist, whatever it is you're doing, whatever your beautiful work is. That work is part of the beautiful work. That oh God, and now the word beautiful. Jeez. But the world that is the joyful, wonderful world that, we want to live in, that we are living in to some extent. And that's what's so insane. Um, on TikTok, there's a lot of talk about timelines and jumping the timeline and what timeline you're living in. And maybe some of you or I, or maybe we have jumped the timeline, but there's an awareness of lots of timelines happening. Now, um, what your work is in part imaginative and it's in part resourceful. Um, and it's in part alchemical. I think of those as like the three parts of creativity, or the triangle of creative genius: air, alchemy, imagination, and resourcefulness. And generally people are a little stronger in one than the other. I think my imagination is, for me, a little weaker than I'm very resourceful, and I do believe in alchemy. I mean, comedy is all alchemy. I mean, you're shifting, you're taking one reality and with laugh, there's an alchemy in comedy. Hey, Lise. So for creative people right now, I want to be the voice for you today of do your work, because it's not, is my work important? What difference is it going to make? How is it going to help? These are all like questions that I think everyone is having now, who's doing work, at least on some days. And artists who are prone to self-doubt anyway, I mean, that's being a good questioner is part of the required skill set of being an artist. So of course you're going to question yourself. That's part of it. You have to like learn to live with the questions, right? Love the question. That's one of the things I'm always telling people. Well, love the question. If you don't have the answer, love the question. So, and by the way, hop in with any questions if you have a question. If you have a question for me, or maybe you just came in for a pep talk, and I love that. So, we have our questions, and then on top of the questions that we have is like, what's the point? How will it help? Is it, should I bother? Why bother? Why, blah, 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 blah. And especially because, the economy of so many different parts of the creative industries are so crazy right now. So that makes it, but the real question is, if you don't do your work, if you don't do your work, what is the cost? What's the emotional cost? What's the spiritual cost? What's the political cost? What's the financial, metaphysical cost? All these costs of not doing your work, of, slowly dying inside because, so many, you're born to do it. You have this spark in you. And if you let that spark go out, I mean, the keeper of the flame is one definition of the creative life, holding a safe space for that flame, putting fuel on that fire and not letting the crazy dumpster fire of the world put out your fire, or subsume your fire. Don't let your gentle, burning, bright, creative flame be crazy and not crazy, but don't let it be kind of fire put out a fire. It can't, fighting fire with fire, but don't let their fire put out your fire is what I'm saying. That's a crazy mixed up metaphor. But so if you have any questions about that, I know it can be, I work with a lot of people about making decisions about what to do in their work. And and it can be really crazy making about where to do and what to do and how to do the work. But most importantly is to do it and to find a place in your life and in your heart to do the work. Especially so many of us are, home alone doing the work. Even if I mean, I just finished a script with someone and we did the whole thing. She's in Chicago, I'm in LA, and it's on final draft and we're on the phone and we're on final draft, collaboration, and we're together, but there's also the in real life, exchanging biophotons. It's one reason I keep doing on Cabaret, just to be once a month with, you know with the peers, with the people, with the, exchanging the thing that can only happen in a room with people. But this is great. I mean, so partly I do these. I'm doing these sporadically to be a portal to encouragement, and a way for you to find a place that might have community or answers, or you might find a person who you can work with. That'd be me. So let's see. I would say I wanted to go back to this hyper normalization idea that, is one of the things that can drive us crazy. It's helpful for a creative, I always say for instead of for, and I type it that way too. Uh, but I don't mean for, I mean for, just in case somebody's transcribing. It can be helpful for a creative to really have a clear idea that this is what's happening, because our jobs is going to be, I'm getting so many texts right now. Our jobs are to, be clear about the world for everyone else. So if you're not clear that you're living in 2 dimensions simultaneously, that is what's happening. You're living, you're living, in this hyper-normalized reality where, all is happening, and also this is happening, this unfolding of your work, of your story, of your life, of your pictures, of your paintings, and the paintings that relates to that. You're bringing this into here, and you're bringing this into here, and they are connected. That's one thing I think is really important to remember. And you don't always know what's gonna leak in, and you don't know, even when you're trying to escape it, where it's gonna leak in, and you don't know. You go on to Instagram to promote your show, and you see all of it. You see everything. You see it all. You see the highs, the lows, the bigs, the bads. You see the people fighting. You see the people disappearing. You see it all. And you also see the silly things, the cats, and all these things are absolutely true. So that is, there's a saying, both things are true. And I'm starting to think like all things are true. Both is almost too much of a diminishment. And, it in small ends. The Simpsons have that great in beginning. Sometimes I think, we're living in a world of in smallening. And your work is directly responsible for embiggening. Your work of the soul is directly embiggening. Your work of diving deep in to see, what do you have to say, what is real. And it can seem so disheartening when you think, well, what is the impact? I mean, what is the effect? But, I mean, there's the butterfly thing. The butterfly's wings in, one part of the world, affects everything, but also the ripple effect, but also, that you're not alone, but also, you're, even without your work getting out there, just the fact of you doing your work affects the people around you. And just the fact that you care about a word and which word it should be or which color it should be, that decision. I will say this, when I wrote my book, So You Need to Decide, and as an audiobook, and I did all the interviews for it, and so many amazing stories from so many people in that book. Um, Bob Odenkirk, Julia Sweeney, Phoebe Bridgers, and that book is that book was such a joy to produce. And I told my story about on Cabaret, and one thing I learned about decision making is that we we make, like, I don't know what the number is, like 35,000 decisions a day. That's what the modern decision overwhelm is. And, I don't even know how they decide, what the number is. But, does it like, is this a decision? Does that count? I mean, is this 5 decisions that I've just made right now? But anyway, and being a creative person is all decision making. Like every single day, all day long, that's all you do is make decisions. What word, what picture? That's what made me think of it. What word, what picture, what sound, how to release it, what's the cover, all the things, and who you're going to work with, who's you're going to, represents it. How can you, should it be all the things? And that's why I do my pick your next project. I do that webinar once every couple of months to help people decide. Because sometimes you know what medium, but you don't know what exactly the story is, or you know the story, but what medium, and is it stand up or is it a solo show? People are so much filled with so many questions about what project. So anyway, make that be the question. Don't make that be the decision, what it should be, not if it should be. Letting go of if it should be and fighting so hard to maintain your place in this world of doing. So, I mean, that's really what I came here to say. Keep doing your thing. I came here to say I'm available to help you, cheer you on. And I came here to say I love this Substack community, and I'm so happy to connect with you here. Um, if you guys don't have any other questions, I think that I might be good. This was my message for today. Really, in a world, because I usually am very like, just, I do kind of have a bit of a motor. Uh, Perhaps I'm a workaholic. It's possible. Not gonna give that one up right now. Not on the table. How many things can we quit? So, I had a moment this week. Every one of us, different things get to us, different things of the things that could get to us actually, find their way into the crack, and just like, and I had one of those days, and you're so welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks, Elise. Um, and I just wanted to say, I called a friend, and I called my friend Mary, who's both a meditation teacher and just such a sweet human. And she's an activist, and so I really depend on her. And she was just like, so gently. She just said it so gently. She was just like, well, do your work. Just that's what you should do, is do your work. And I was just like, I almost always know it. And it helped me so much to hear her say it. And so I just wanted to be that voice for you, reminding you that that you're here to do your work. You know that you've been given a gift. You know that you have a piece of the spark, the flame that we all share. And that, when we come together, it burns brighter. And you have a piece of that. So your responsibility is to, keeper of the flame. And, you keep that flame going. You want to be a really a trusted keeper of that flame. And I came here to tell you that. I came here to really to turn you on to this idea of hypernormalization, which I think might be really helpful. Again, like cognitive dissonance. And I really think, very much, I was just thinking, oh, the Bo Burnham that funny feeling, was another way of saying it. And it's a lot, when I my solo show, It's a Lot, which I've been developing for a year or two, and is next up in October. Uh, when we talk about It's a Lot, it's all of this, and it's this overwhelm and underwhelm at the same time. It's, not being able to, separate yourself, but needing to separate yourself, but knowing you can't be separate, knowing you're connected to everything, knowing you have to somehow create a safe space and disconnect to focus, knowing, developing all sorts of skill sets that you just had no idea you were going to need. This like way of navigating through news cycles and still writing a novel. This way of you know uh, operating financially in a world that is so challenging for everyone, and creatives especially. But I wanna say, as part of the pep talk today, the word create comes from a word that means to grow. It doesn't mean to make. And I love the word make because it's so easy to say and that's such a punch. I make it, you know. But the word create, which is, we're creators as much as makers, and the in the grand scheme of the galaxy and the cosmos, we think of that as creation, and we don't think of that as made. When you look up at the sky and you see, that giant image of, boss, that giant new image that there is. And, that's creation. That's how we think of it. And that you're a piece of it, you're a piece of that. You have a piece. Who knows what it all is? Is it all some sort of holographic, projection of, is it some sort of video game? Is it, are we someone's imagination? All of that. Who knows? And what a privilege to even get to wonder that stuff. But, because the word create means to grow, and if you think of yourself as a creator, um, it is, Dan. It's a bitch. It really is. If you think of yourself as a creator and you think about, growth as the creator's job, then what you want to do is you want to pick projects that are going to help you grow and become. And then you've evolved, and then you pick different projects and they help you. And that is when I say the infinite creator, that's what I'm talking about, is that process of growing, of not just, you don't want to be just churning it out. You're not a factory. You're not you're not an assembly line. You are involved in an organic, sacred practice. You're involved in the creation of new realities as we make our way through this incredibly disturbing time. You're both, I'll say this before I go. One of the first fights I had with my now ex-husband was, and we were together for a long time, so maybe it was a red flag, but maybe it was just life. One of our first fight really was, we happened to be building bookshelves, which I do always think home improvements is a time when fights happen. But he casually said something about, oh, the screenplay I'm working on. I was like, wait, what screenplay? And he was like, or like hammering. I see it like as an opera, hammer, 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 screw, 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 screw. What screenplay are you working on? Anyway, he said, that post-apocalyptic screenplay. And I was like, I don't think you did mention that. And we got into this huge fight. I was like, well, you can't write a post-apocalyptic screenplay because you're making that a possibility. You're creating that as like a reality as you write it. And his argument was, no, I am processing my feelings. And I thought, he had a point. There is a truth to that. You can't be like, oh, I can only do the good things in my art. And obviously, this is what comedy is. I mean, comedy is pain plus time equals a comedy. So, the spiritual practice of patience is a comedian's best friend, but it's so hard. But, my point is, there's plenty of pain that is already, real, that you can deal with. You don't have to like create what's worse. And listen, I watched The Last of Us. I've watched plenty of them. I don't boycott them. But we are to some extent, without being, grandiose about it, your work creates the world. I mean, you are creating a world as you work, whether you're writing fictions or whether you're making comedy or music. You are creating, hopefully, you are growing, you are creating a world, you are creating beauty, you're creating joy, you're creating intimacy, you're creating connection. um and, you're creating all this stuff. Now, Dan says, I've written worst case scenario election night, and it's scary how much has come to be. Well, maybe Dan, if you were, I have to tell you something. I'm going to tell you, I had a radio show, back, I don't know, the turn of the millennium. And, at that time, there was a bunch of books that were, the worst case scenario books. And yeah, what happens if you fall off a motorcycle, or, I know, everything. Um, And that's for some reason the only one I ever remember, and I was just mad about it. I was mad that these books with the idea of the best case scenario were so popular, and so I decided I was gonna write a book called The Best Case Scenario, and it was a group of short stories that linked short stories that, had to do with it started out with, a couple finding, furniture with money in it, and it ended up with peace in the Middle East, but they each story led to another. It sounds great. I should rewrite take a look at that. Anyway, didn't go anywhere because, the next day after I finished it, I had the worst nightmare of my life, blood in the streets, apocalyptic, and I thought, "Oh my god, I'm just suppressing it." I'm living in some Pollyanna reality, and I had by living in this best case scenario, um and then I woke up the next day and it was 9/11. So, there's that. And I think, a lot of what's going on is so historic. My knowledge of history is, sorely not what it should be, and I think we're all getting educated historically right now. Reading, there's so much to read now, and so we're learning, we're all learning because history is now very present. We were living within it. So we learn what we can. And maybe we do need that now, at least. I should take it out, go into the archives. But I'm always like, moving forward, move forward. It's very scary. I hate post production so much. One reason I love doing these Substack lives is I finish, then Substack just like sends me some clips and I never have to, go through. Anyway, so that's some stuff about how to deal with now. And, Dan, I'm sure you process a lot of stuff. And worst case scenario election night, we had an election, so it's actually not the worst case scenario. Um, but this isn't that podcast. This is the channel that you tune into. There's a full well, I do love Substack because there's such a broad spectrum of what there is. You can get the political, you can get the comedy, you can get the uplifting, you can get something that combines many of those things. That might be this. So anyway, so that's it. Hypernormalization, cognitive dissonance. You might have doubts. It is that funny feeling. It's a lot. You're not crazy. You are sensitive. Let me just say this in closing. How many closings have I done? I think this is my third. Let me say this in closing. One of the things about you, and, one of the things about you, yes, keeper of the flame, is that you are sensitive. I promise you that you're sensitive, and it really, do you feel it more than other people? Not more than everyone, but more than some people for sure. Because you're sensitive. If you weren't sensitive, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be doing your work. You wouldn't be crying sometimes. You wouldn't, and that sensitivity is troublesome. It's troublesome. It's troublesome to walk around the world and feel stuff and, not build your hard shell and not, just decide you don't feel things. And, maybe you're also smart and you feel a lot of things and you don't even know what you're feeling. I'm working on a feelings chart because I sometimes feel things and I don't know what they are. And I've gone to look for the feelings chart. Byron Bowers, who's so funny if you don't know his work, he was on Cab a couple of months ago, and he was talking about going to therapy with his lady, and they were asking him, "Well, what are you feeling?" And he's just like flummoxed. And I said on the back mic, I was like, "Didn't they give you a chart?" Because I remember when I started to have feelings, people were like sending me charts like crazy. Here's a chart, you can look at if you're having a feeling and maybe it'll tell you. But the chart's never quite, I don't know. There is one in my notes I published. So check that out if you want to know some things about feelings. And I'd love to hear what you're feeling. So that's it for today. Am I going to say you're doing great? You are showing up, you are doing your work. And, if you need to be part of a community, check out the Infinite Creator community. Come be with us, or just check into these lives. Let me know if you've loved it. Let me know what helped. Let me know if you have questions. I love to answer. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for joining me. It's been a delight. We made it to half an hour together. Just the 100 million of us, or 26, whatever it is. Thanks so much. Um, Keep that flame. Be good for now. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.